What if everything we thought we knew about ancient history was wrong? Across frozen glaciers, buried deserts, and hidden mountain forests, archaeologists have uncovered places that shouldn't exist. Sealed chambers, forgotten villages, and structures built by hands no one can explain. These discoveries weren't just lost to time. They were buried on purpose. Why? And what were they trying to hide? Welcome to Unsolved Archives, where we delve into the hidden, the mysterious, and the unanswered. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your insight could be the key to unlocking the truth. The Tomb Beneath the Salt, Poland's lost cathedral of bones. For centuries, the Wieliczka salt mine near Krakow, Poland, was known for its breathtaking chapels carved into solid rock salt. Tourists have walked its tunnels, marveled at salt chandeliers, and descended into its glittering underground cathedrals. But in 2021, an exploratory dig to stabilize a forgotten shaft revealed something no one had ever expected: a chamber that had been deliberately sealed, its walls blackened with time and mineral crust. The discovery came by accident. A support column cracked during routine maintenance, exposing a narrow passageway, hidden behind centuries of hardened salt. It led to a descending staircase, chiseled cleanly, unlike the rougher surfaces of the mine around it. Experts immediately knew this wasn't part of the original mine work. It was older, much older. What the team uncovered was nothing short of astonishing: a vast, subterranean room resembling a cathedral, its columns shaped like rib bones, its ceiling high and vaulted, with intricate carvings of human skulls, angels without faces, and crucifixes bent unnaturally to one side. Everything was carved from salt. Every surface seemed to shimmer with a dull, bone-colored glow under flashlight beams. But the most disturbing detail sat at the center of the room: 13 human skeletons, fully intact, seated in a circle, each one posed with its head tilted upward and arms extended toward the ceiling. The bones were nearly mummified by the salt, preserving every detail, from the rings on their fingers to the stitching of the robes that still clung to their frames. No one had seen anything like it. There was no record, no document, not even folklore about such a site beneath the Wieliczka mine. At first, historians thought it might be a hidden monastic retreat. But as carbon dating results came in, the mystery deepened. The bones were from the 14th century, before the most well-known chapel was ever built. Some remains were older still, possibly dating back to the late 1200s. That wasn't all. One body, seated apart from the others, bore signs of trepanation, a hole drilled into the skull with surgical precision. That procedure wasn't practiced in Poland at the time. The wound had healed, meaning the person had lived for years after the operation. Symbols were etched around the chamber's circumference, circles containing a jagged spiral, repeated again and again. None of the archaeologists could place them. A linguist from the Jagiellonian University was brought in to examine inscriptions carved in Old Polish and Latin around the main altar. They were fragmentary but chilling. "We sealed them here so the choir would not rise again, and under salt, they do not sing." What choir? What had been sealed? Whispers grew within the archaeological team. One assistant resigned after claiming she had heard faint singing in the walls when she was alone in the chamber, a low chant that stopped the moment she turned on her flashlight. 2 other members refused to go back into the room altogether, citing intense headaches and pressure in the skull they felt while inside. The church, when consulted, denied any knowledge of such a structure, but cautioned that Poland in the Middle Ages was a battleground of faith and heresy. Underground cults, strange sects, and forgotten rituals had flourished in the shadow of Catholic authority. Perhaps this was a remnant of one such group. Still, something about the site felt older than religion, like it predated Christianity itself. Some theorists compared the chamber's design to pre-Slavic burial sites, with a touch of Norse and Celtic influence. But why place it beneath a salt mine? Why bury the dead seated upright, with hands reaching upward? Then came the final revelation. When a drone was sent into a side passage too narrow for humans, it captured footage of an adjoining room. There were more skeletons, dozens, stacked neatly in rows, wrapped in woven fabric that hadn't decayed. But the most troubling sight was a sculpture at the end of the passage, a humanoid figure carved from salt, nearly 10 feet tall, with no face and elongated arms stretching to the floor. At its base were words carved in a now-dead Slavic dialect, "The Silent God." What was this place? The Polish government quietly sealed off the chamber after initial documentation. Official reports now refer to it as historically sensitive and in need of long-term stabilization. But those close to the excavation say nothing further has been allowed to be removed, not the scrolls found in the cracks, not the rings, not the sculpture. The air inside, they said, was no longer still. The salt walls began to sweat. The head archaeologist, Dr. Marta Zielinska, gave a single interview before retreating from the public eye. In it, she said only one sentence that was later cut from the broadcast. "We didn't discover it. It waited for us to come back." The village that time rejected, Illyrian echoes in Albania. Tucked high in the accursed mountains, a rugged, largely unexplored spine of peaks dividing Albania from Montenegro, sat a village that, until recently, no one outside the locals even believed existed. It wasn't on any official map. Satellite imaging showed only forest. For decades, even shepherds avoided the area, claiming it was cursed, plagued by old gods and silent watchers in the fog. But in 2023, a team of Albanian geologists conducting a biodiversity survey stumbled upon it by accident. At first glance, the settlement looked abandoned, stone huts overrun with vines, animal pens broken and rotting. But when one of the researchers entered the central clearing, an old woman appeared from one of the huts. Then another. And another. Soon, 24 villagers, weathered by the wind and sun, emerged in silence. None of them spoke modern Albanian. Their dialect was jagged, rhythmic, almost song-like. A linguistic anthropologist later confirmed what no one dared believe. It was a preserved form of Illyrian, the language spoken by tribes who ruled the Western Balkans over 2,000 years ago and were believed completely extinct by the Roman Empire. But how could they have survived? What was more bizarre was their resistance to outside contact. The villagers refused to be photographed. They barred researchers from taking samples of their food, clothing, or soil. Instead, they allowed only limited access, on the condition that no one stayed past nightfall. The one researcher who broke that rule, a cultural historian from Tirana, was found just outside the village's stone boundary wall the next morning, barefoot, dazed, and unable to speak. He eventually recovered, but he never wrote about what he saw. Not once. The turning point came when archaeologists were permitted to enter a nearby cave system sacred to the village elders. Inside, they discovered etched murals, ancient tools, and burial alcoves filled with perfectly preserved remains, some dating back to 600 BC. But the cave held something stranger than artifacts, inscriptions written in both Illyrian and what resembled early Etruscan. One passage translated loosely to, "Here we remain, untouched by the winds of empire. The gods buried the sun and covered us with stone, so the world above would forget." Historians were baffled. This wasn't a lost outpost, it was an intentional exile. Some of the pottery bore symbols never seen before, including one recurring glyph, 3 interlocking circles, each encasing a different symbol, an eye, a sun, and a tree. A few researchers believed it represented a cosmological map, past, present, and the place between. DNA testing, with limited permission, revealed a shocking genetic anomaly. This population had almost zero mixing with any known modern group. Their lineage traced back further than most European databases could track. Their diet, herbal medicine, and spiritual practices were untainted by modern influence, like a living archaeological dig. But as word spread, something curious happened. Officials from the Albanian Ministry of Culture issued an unusual edict declaring the area a site of critical national heritage, closing it to outsiders indefinitely. UNESCO never got involved. Satellite images of the area were later blurred. And the villagers? They vanished. When a drone was sent months later, the village was gone, every structure, every path, erased. Trees had regrown where fire pits once smoldered. It was as if the village had never been there. Only the cave remained, and even that was sealed shut with stones that looked centuries old. To this day, No one can explain how a group of people could live outside of history for over 2 millennia, or how they disappeared without a trace. But one final note survives from the team's notebook. A transcription of something whispered by one of the elders before they left. "We were never forgotten. The world simply grew deaf." The fortress below the sand, Egypt's second Sphinx complex. In the unforgiving heat of the Egyptian desert, just beyond the Giza Plateau's official excavation zone, something strange happened in early 2022. A joint team of archaeologists and geophysical surveyors detected unexplained voids underground, massive cavities arranged in precise, geometric formations. Initially dismissed as natural formations or ancient quarries, a deeper scan revealed uniform right angles, symmetrically arranged passageways, and, most hauntingly, a silhouette that resembled a reclining beast. A second Sphinx. But this one was buried. Excavations began cautiously, shrouded in secrecy. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities ordered a full media blackout. Despite the hush, whispers leaked from within the dig, massive stairs descending into cool, undisturbed air, walls lined with black basalt, and a sealed chamber that generated strange electromagnetic fields strong enough to disable drones and cause temporary memory lapses in nearby workers. When the sand was finally cleared from the main figure, the excavation team was stunned. The structure was a twin Sphinx, but not a replica. It was longer, leaner, with exaggerated features, the lion's body more serpentine, the head smaller and slightly tilted, as if listening. Unlike the famous Sphinx of Giza, this figure was untouched by erosion. It hadn't faced centuries of sandstorms, because it had never seen the surface. And beneath it was a structure even more mysterious. A temple. Perfectly preserved walls depicted scenes unlike any from Egypt's dynastic periods. Figures with elongated limbs and oversized skulls stood beneath strange constellations. In one mural, a doorway opened into a star-filled void. Another showed what appeared to be humans walking into that void, guided by a large, lion-headed being with radiant eyes. A hidden sarcophagus was found under the structure's heart, but when they opened it, it was empty, save for a single slab of obsidian, covered in inscriptions that predate even early Egyptian hieroglyphs. One symbol repeated over and over, a spiral entering a square. Ancient astronaut theorists began to buzz online. But Egyptologists were less concerned with aliens, and more shaken by what came next. Carbon dating placed the temple, and the second Sphinx, between 10,500 and 11,000 BCE. Nearly 7,000 years before the pyramids. This directly contradicted every official timeline. If accurate, it would place the structure before any known civilization. Then the most chilling part, a set of scrolls, stored in an airtight stone canister hidden inside a wall cavity. They were fragile, but legible. Written in early Proto-Afroasiatic script, the translation stunned researchers. When the sky fire came, the watchers fled below. The stone lions marked the place of return. One to remember. One to guard. What sky fire? What watchers? Pressure mounted from every side. Scientific institutions, national governments, religious leaders. Within months, the site was resealed, filled in, and declared geologically unstable. All access was revoked. Some believe the discovery was suppressed to protect historical narratives. Others believe something darker was found beneath that sand. Dr. Amina Farouk, the leading Egyptologist on site, vanished from public life. Her last message to a colleague before disconnecting. "We always asked what came after the Sphinx. We never thought to ask what came before." The forest that grows in circles, the temple of Mycenae reawakened. Deep in the Pindus Mountains of northern Greece, rangers investigating abnormal tree growth stumbled upon something nature should never have allowed. Satellite imagery revealed concentric rings of trees, perfect circles, each with mathematically increasing diameter, radiating outward like ripples frozen in time. Botanists were called in first, assuming a fungal infection or unusual magnetic deposit. What they found was older. Much older. The trees within the rings all leaned slightly outward, as if pushed back from a central force. Their growth patterns defied biology. Some were over 700 years old but had grown in spiraled knots. Beneath the forest floor, sonar detected dense stone formations, right under the heart of the inner ring. Archaeologists moved in. After weeks of careful excavation, they uncovered the remains of a Mycenaean temple, far north of any previously known Mycenaean site. The floor plan was striking, a perfect spiral inward, not outward like most temples. At the center stood an altar made of megalithic slabs, still humming faintly with thermal energy. Around the altar, 12 obsidian columns bore markings similar to linear B, but distorted, almost warped versions. No Greek temple on record matched the structure. But it was the ceiling, now partially collapsed, that held the biggest surprise. Preserved under layers of stone was a massive mosaic, a glowing-eyed figure with golden antlers, surrounded by stars, and humans bowing before it with hands raised in silence. No Greek god matched the image. Not Apollo, not Dionysus, not even the shadowy chthonic deities. This figure was other. Buried nearby, sealed in urns, were human teeth, hundreds of them. The teeth had been filed, some sharpened. Some had gold wiring woven into the roots. Evidence of ritual offerings? Genetic testing later revealed that the remains belonged to people from widely different regions of the Mediterranean. They had come here for something. Stranger still were the readings taken inside the spiral sanctuary. When instruments were placed at the altar center, compasses spun slowly, magnetometers spiked at regular intervals, and audio recorders captured a low-frequency hum, undetectable to the human ear but consistent across time. Every 13 minutes and 7 seconds, the hum would intensify, then vanish. The pattern matched lunar orbital shifts. Locals, when asked, were visibly disturbed. Many refused to speak. One old man finally said, "My grandfather told me to never go past the outer circle. He said if you go in too far, your voice won't come back with you." The discovery appended understandings of Mycenaean religion and engineering. But soon after excavation began, seismic activity, previously rare in the region, started to increase. Equipment would fail inside the spiral. Batteries drained. Some archaeologists reported nausea, vertigo, or lost time. One team member disappeared for 3 hours. He was found lying face up on the altar, eyes open, unable to speak for 2 days. In the end, the Greek government cordoned off the site under the pretext of geological instability and risk of collapse. But unofficial accounts claim a military presence was briefly dispatched, then withdrawn. All academic work was halted. A few researchers were allowed to retain photos and notes, but none have published formal papers. Dr. Eleni Serafis, the head archaeologist, released a short interview before resigning and leaving Athens entirely. In it, she said, "I don't think it was a temple. I think it was a gate. The spiral leads inward, but I don't think it ends here." The Glacier Library, Forgotten Knowledge in the Ice. In late 2024, in a remote, rapidly melting sector of the Himalayan plateau near the India-Tibet border, satellite scans picked up something that should not have existed, a rectangular formation embedded within a glacier. The shape was too precise to be natural. 90-degree angles, aligned along true cardinal directions, with reflective properties inconsistent with surrounding rock or ice. A joint Indo-Tibetan scientific team was dispatched to investigate. After carving through nearly 30 meters of solid ice, they reached a stone surface. What they uncovered was a small, perfectly preserved structure embedded entirely within the glacier, a temple-like building composed of dark, heat-resistant stone, unlike anything naturally found in the region. Inside, the air was unnaturally dry and still. The building had been insulated by layers of ice for what carbon dating would later suggest was over 4,000 years. There were no windows, no entrances from the outside, meaning it had either been deliberately sealed or constructed before the glacier formed around it. Within its chambered halls were hundreds of scrolls, preserved in wax-lined copper tubes. The texts were written in a combination of Sanskrit, Tibetan, and an unidentified language of geometric symbols and flowing loops, somewhere between mathematics and script. But the most startling revelations came from the translated portions of the Sanskrit texts. The writings spoke of healing techniques using vibration and light, centuries ahead of modern phototherapy. A map of the Earth's crust showing fault lines that would only be discovered in the 20th century. Sky rivers of energy that influenced consciousness and memory. And most disturbingly, predictions of periodic planetary realignments that wipe the spoken world clean. In one scroll, a passage read, "We sealed the books in ice so the fire would not consume them. Those who read must not only understand, but remember who they were before the fall." Archaeologists also found etched murals depicting a lost city, circular and radiant, nestled between high peaks, with a massive tower projecting a beam into the sky. Many interpreted this as Shambhala, the legendary city of enlightenment, long dismissed as myth. But one of the scrolls referenced the tower directly, calling it the axis of memory. The materials used in the structure's construction included mica, quartz-infused mortar, and alloys unknown to metallurgy labs. They exhibited resistance to decay, time, and even flame. One alloy sample remained cool to the touch even after hours under direct sunlight. Then came the most inexplicable find, a rotating mechanism embedded in the floor, formed from interlocking rings inscribed with planetary alignments. It responded only when the temperature dropped below -20 degrees Celsius, unlocking a hidden panel that contained 3 perfectly spherical stones, each encasing a different metal core that vibrated faintly when held near each other. Scientists could not identify the energy source. Shortly after the site was made public, it was declared off-limits by both Indian and Chinese authorities under the claim of border security concerns. Satellite images of the region were replaced with older, cloud-covered photographs. The lead translator, a monk from Ladakh named Tenzin Dorje, gave one interview before withdrawing from public life. In it, he said, "This is not a temple. It is a message, not to us, but to the ones who come after the next forgetting. We were not meant to find it now, and we may not survive what follows." These 5 stories form a single narrative thread. Places thought lost, erased by time, myth, or design, still waiting beneath the surface. Every case adds a new layer of mystery, leaving more questions than answers. Which one lingers in your mind, and what's your take on what really happened?